We just need to begin. Welcome to FitBryn. No, that was not intended to rhyme, but it freaking worked out. Welcome to today's workout. We're gonna crush a 30-minute upper body workout. We're getting that sexy back, sexy arms, that hot posture. So let's freaking get it. We are going to do a little bit of a warm up. So as you can see, I move my arms in circles forwards and backwards. And clearly I need to work on a little bit of mobility because you don't want your arms to kind of be so far away from your ears. You know how they kind of like flare out a little bit? I was noticing that and we can do better. So I'm going to make a priority to stretch and do some good yoga. We're gonna head into the next move. No, I will not be doing transitions for everything. Genuinely, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today and I thought that I needed to prepare something, but we're just going to let the flow take us. And I think that I should decide what I want to talk about the most. And I think what I want to explore in this episode, because I genuinely LOL, in this workout is external validation and very subtly feeling like you aren't good enough in just your essence of who you are and kind of how you can very subtly throw away your power to external situations, whether it's people or things, i.e. shopping, to make yourself feel better, and it is temporary. Maybe the best way to describe this is to share my experience in high school. Genuinely, I'm trying to trace back when I really started to outsource my sense of self to other people, because we grow up in this world, or we are born into this world very whole, not feeling like there's something wrong with us, you know? And I had a really solid beginning to my life in kindergarten and elementary school, and I think I first started to feel like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with me when my family and I moved from Winnipeg to Toronto, because I'm Canadian, and we moved when I was around 7 years old, I think is correct. And the kids were just a little bit different in Toronto. Back in Winnipeg, when it was lunchtime, maybe this is just age in general, but it's like if we wanted to trade food at lunch and you wanted someone's Dunkaroos, they wouldn't ask for anything in return. And when I moved to Toronto and I was going to elementary school, I noticed that you were like, oh my god, I love fruit roll-ups. Can I have one? Or can I have some? They'd be like, well, what are you going to give me back in return? That was my first little loss of innocence, where I was like, the world is a different place and people are out to get things from you and generosity is dead. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it was like Adam and Eve when Adam eats the apple. When Eve eats the apple, clearly I don't know my Bible stories and the innocence is lost. So around that time when we moved, I had a difficult time making friends, actually. I found that the kids were kind of cliquey, and there were things about not getting invited to other people's birthday parties, and you never wanted to be the person that was not invited to the birthday party, but sometimes there was a girl that just did not like you, and if she didn't invite you, you knew that it was on purpose. And I remember trying to make friends in recess and things like that, and going up to two girls that I thought looked quite nice and asking if I could play with them at recess, and they said no, they didn't want to play with me, they wanted to play by themselves. And it seems super silly now, but oh my god, that shit does stuff to you, because you're like, what's wrong with me? Why don't you want to play with me, you know? So elementary school was this weird time trying to find belonging and trying to find meaningful friends. And it's weird because I ended up starting to become the perpetrator later in my childhood life, where in grade 5, I transferred schools and I found these two twins that I was very close friends with, and we were very exclusive. I did not like sharing friends. I wanted to feel that control. I think it's because I never wanted to feel rejected again, that it really hurt me that I came to my elementary school with bright eyes and a bushy tail and just wanting to make friends, and that there were kids that just didn't want to play with me because I was new. I didn't have enough time to develop a relationship with them. Also, I mean, fair enough, looking back, I was like a Bible kid. I'm not religious anymore, but I was very religious. And so if my friend swore, I remember one time my friend said, God damn it. And I was like, oh my God, Katarina, you can't say the Lord's name in vain. I need you to read the Bible. So maybe I understand why some kids didn't want to play with me. But to be honest, I wasn't like preaching the Lord's word to them, so it is different. But yeah, I remember this one kid was Jewish and he hated me, and he would like scream at me about how Jesus wasn't real. And oh my god, it was so traumatizing. So elementary school was a wild ride trying to find friends. Back to the fact is that I became the perpetrator and I ended up not wanting to share friends. And I think it was because I was really afraid of being rejected again, and I didn't want to feel left out. Like if I included more people into my friendship with the twins, I was at risk of losing my special place and my sense of belonging. And I think it was because I already had this fear that kids were not going to want to play with me anymore. Like, kid dynamics when you're in elementary school are weird. Sometimes you become like, well, at least this was my experience, sometimes you become so intensely close friends with this one kid and you think that you're soulmates, not in like a romantic sense because that's very premature, but you think you're soulmates in the sense of like, oh my god, we're gonna be friends forever, we connect, and then sometimes like they just start drifting away from you or they don't want to talk to you as much, and it's super weird. Like, god, being a kid and growing up in teenage years are hard as hell. And I think the problem is that so many kids end up thinking that they've done something wrong, and it's like, kids are just fucking young. We just don't know what the fuck we're doing, you know? But you just take it personal, and then somehow you carry these beliefs into your adult life. It's not just from the fact that kids didn't want to play with me on the playground, but that contributed to this belief system I had that I wasn't good enough and that I was going to get rejected and that people were going to leave me. You add the way that my mom raised me and how she conditioned me. You add some like traumatic sexual experiences that happened before you were ready or when you didn't fully really understand what was going on. And then you also just couple that with friends that have mental health issues, that are going through very dark times, and it starts to rub off on you, and then you start to become very critical of your body. I'm obviously sounding very generalized, but I'm talking about myself, where my high school boyfriend called me fat, and after that it was like my innocence left, and I just started being so critical of my body and looking at it differently, starting to be very controlling with my eating. And obviously I'll go into my eating story another time to really give it the justice that it deserves. But all of this to say that these experiences kind of accumulated in this belief system that I was going to be left, that I wasn't good enough, and that I wasn't worthy of love. And I ended up always searching for that validation externally. And a very clear example of it is that definitely when I first started to get into high school around the age of 15, maybe it happened younger for your experience, but I think that was kind of the time where kids around started to get sexually active. You know, you start to hear about people making out at parties and kissing, or God forbid there's that like one scandal of how this girl had sex and you're in grade 10, which means you're, God, I don't know, like 15, I think is the right age, 15, 16, and you're like, holy shit, it happened, somebody did it, I can't believe it. So yeah, you hear that person having sex, and it's just kind of like the door swings open to sexual stuff. I think it also depends on what country you grew up in and what culture, because I have some friends from Mexico and my partner is Mexican, and sexual stuff for them happened quite late, like much later, whereas honestly, full disclosure, kids in my high school were just like sucking that popsicle quite young, and it kind of like created this atmosphere of a little bit of pressure. I created that for myself, I acknowledge that, but again, realize that I had quite low self-esteem going into high school, and that you kind of just want to be part of that high school teenage experience, you know, to feel like nothing's wrong with you, to feel like you're accepted and that you're cool enough to go to parties, you're cool enough and old enough that boys want to do things with you. And I also think, to my credit, I don't know if this is something to credit myself, but I was always obsessed with love when I was younger. I had Barbie dolls, and it was like either the story has a romantic interest and that's the main point of the story, or I don't want to play. Like, I don't want to be a doctor and tend to my animals and be an intelligent woman. I want to find love. And that was always the main point of all of my stories. And it's like, I always fantasized about being loved and being kissed and having this love just fill this hole in my life. Didn't realize it as much at the time that it was filling a hole when I was super young, but that genuinely is what it is, you know? I was looking forward to having a relationship and to having love because that was the most important thing for me to feel good about myself. Also, this is a conversation for another time. I can definitely get into my grade 7 to grade 12 years, which is like maybe 13 to 17, I think is that time frame, and how I had so much difficulty making friends, just experience like unfortunate situations with people. I'm not saying that they're completely bad, but just kids are silly growing up. I wanted to say stupid, but just everyone's a mess. People hurt you. It's not personal, but you know, boys are also going through puberty and they tease you. And I experienced a lot of racism at my school because I'm half Japanese and I went to a predominantly Italian white school. So I obviously looked different and I got a lot of teasing from boys, and also girls were very cliquey. And I kind of always struggled finding friends that I felt safe and myself around because I just had a very different upbringing from most of the people that I went to school with. A lot of people got like cars bought for them on their 16th birthday. There was a lot of affluence, which is fine. I'm not saying that affluence means that people are assholes, but like, I don't know. The culture was just very shallow. It was metropolitan Toronto. So it was very popularity based. It was very based on what you owned and if you had like a designer Coach bracelet to store your lunch money in, you know? It was just a different kind of culture. I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but the point is that I had a really hard time making friends and also experienced like cyberbullying when I was 13, and girls were just like, you're a bitch and like you suck, blah blah blah, because I went through periods where I would kind of distance myself from certain friends because I just genuinely didn't feel safe in those friendships, but they would take offense and they wouldn't like it. So it was just like a harsher environment. But I think that really made me smaller. Those experiences made me smaller because I don't think that I felt like I had options around me to really find friends that we had similar values and that I could be myself. It was almost like I had to put a protective coating over myself for so many years because there just weren't the right people at my school to connect with. And I don't know if I could have done anything differently, you know? It was like a protective mechanism. Also, during that period of time, when I was like 13, 14, my dad cheated on my mom. And that was a super traumatic time in the family home in terms of turmoil and confusion and like parents fighting and me always kind of being home alone and my parents working a lot of the time. And when they were home, not my dad as much, but my mom was very like controlling and also very fear-based in the way that she interacted with me. It's like my mom would interact with me very fear-based, and it was always kind of like our main interaction was always about what I could achieve or whether or not I was being good enough, like if I was polite enough or kind of like fitting into the nice box of successful achievement. And so I felt like the things that I wanted or the ideas that I had, the things that I wanted to do, my mom immediately answered me with, I'm worried about this, you haven't thought about this, it's not a good idea, you shouldn't do that, and here are all the reasons why you shouldn't do that. And so I never felt like I was taught to make decisions for myself. I never felt like I was taught to learn how to tune into who I was and to ground myself in that and to own that and honor that and then show up in the world in that way. It's like I felt as though I was a ghost, and not to be super disrespectful to my mom, but in a way, like I felt like she was a ghost as well of herself. You know, she came to Canada when she was super young, when she was 16, and she stayed, and it was kind of this thing where she never felt like she was Japanese enough because she moved to Canada from Japan. She always felt like a fish out of water in Canada, but also when she visited Japan, she had this longing to be more Japanese, but it was kind of this romanticized version of what she thought being Japanese was. And She chose to do a career in music, I think because she wanted to be a musician, but it wasn't like the artistry of being a musician. It was very like technical and the prestige that you could get by being a musician, about the position that you held in a symphony. And, you know, to her credit, like, she had a great, impressive career, but I don't know if she actually like enjoyed music for the sake of music. And so I think my mom didn't even realize this, but she spent most of her life just acting in accordance with the containers that she felt were safe for her, of being accepted by other people, of being good or being accomplished. But I don't think she ever really tuned into what she wanted or who she was. Like, it's so weird. I don't have this grasp of my mom and who she is and what she stands for, besides like being polite, having rules, not getting tattoos because the Yakuza are gonna freaking, you know, go after you in the bathhouse in Japan. These are some like cultural things, but yeah, I don't know. This is a conversation to explore another time. Essentially, the point of me sharing this is to describe how I just grew up in a environment where I didn't even realize that I was acting in a shell. I was acting as if I was, what am I trying to say? That I was showing up in the world in a shell form. I had so many masks for my survival. And as a result of not feeling safe with friends and not feeling like I really had people that I could connect with and share my story with, I also had a best friend from Winnipeg that I kept in contact with, but she had like really horrendous mental health challenges and addiction issues and self-harm issues. And she was also very emotionally volatile. Like, she would get super angry at you for no real legitimate reason, and she would throw tantrums, and I found that very traumatic for myself because I wanted to keep the friendship. I wanted her to continue to like me, but also at the same time, I think I accepted certain types of treatment that weren't fair or weren't healthy for me. And all people want, honestly, is to have belonging. You want to feel accepted for who you are. You want to be goofy, and you want to be creative, and you just want yourself to be loved for who you are. And coupled with my need or my desire to have boys like me, I stifled that and I suffocated that without even fully realizing. It was like, how can I fit myself into the box of these Toronto girls that, you know, are well liked, that go to parties, that have nice clothes and all of this kind of stuff. Like, I remember like stealing money from my mom's underwear drawer because I wanted to buy these Free City sweatpants that were fucking $100. I mean, yeah, honestly, even now in 2024, the thought of spending $100 on sweatpants, I'm like, no, max $60. And they weren't even good, but I just wanted the name brand because I wanted to be like other girls, and I didn't want to be Japanese. I wanted to look like everyone else. I couldn't own my heritage. I felt like something was wrong with me, or that I was ugly and unwanted. And so I ended up putting so much pressure on myself to be liked by boys, or just wanting it so bad. Like, I remember the thing that I wanted the most when I was in grade 9. So I feel like I keep saying I was just 13 for all of these different years, but honestly, it's really tough because in Canada we go by grades, and when I try to tell my partner stories, he's like, Brenna, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know what age you are in grade 9. You have to give me a literal age. But I think grade 9 I was like 15, and the thing that I wanted the most was just to have my first kiss. And it's so funny because when I was growing up, I wanted my first kiss to mean a lot. I wanted it to be super special because I had this Disney idea in my head. But it didn't really happen like that. So I went to an all-girls school. I ended up moving schools for a year because my dad got fired, and so we couldn't afford. I went to like a private Catholic school. That was the Italian school that I talked about. So we moved to a public Catholic school, and we had dances with boy schools to, like, I don't know, encourage intergender mixing. I sound like such an old lady, but yeah, genuinely. So you met up with an all-boys school for a dance, and they would play fucking like David Guetta and shit like that, and you were like, yes. And then you would kind of grind, but it wasn't anything exciting. It was just like having a guy's front, like wee-wee area, up against your butt and you just moved side to side, side to side. And yeah, that was it. And so I remember just wanting to get it over with and just turning around if there was a guy that was dancing with me and having my first kiss with them. Don't know what his name was, don't know what he looked like had my head cocked to the side because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing for my first kiss for a solid 35 minutes, just moving my mouth open and closed, open and closed. I don't even know if there was tongue. I really hope not, because I'm sure it would have been horrendous. But yeah, I mean, I remember for the next few days after that being like, oh my god, I can still feel this kiss on my lips, wow. But was nothing special. And it's sad, you know, that I wanted to just get it over with so that I could just kind of join the crew of girls that were doing things, you know, that to make you feel like you were normal and that there wasn't anything wrong with you or that you were missing this like milestone in life. And yeah, I don't regret it or anything because it's my story, but I see that now that it was just always coming from a place of me putting myself against this external metric because I didn't know how to hold myself and just feel confident in who I was. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think especially when you're young, you're a young woman, you are making your way in life, and being insecure is like so fair. But I don't think that we should accept that as the standard, you know? Like, if I have kids and if I have daughters, I really want to raise them in a way to trust their decision-making skills and to always be aligned with the values that they know are true for themselves. But you need to help your kids identify that and to help them be able to critically think about whether or not decisions that they make are aligned with who they are or whether they're getting swayed by social pressure and things like that. So after that period of time, I got a boyfriend. So my first boyfriend in grade 10. And that was a situation that I dated him for maybe a year, but oh my god, it was like a high school romance. But after I dated my high school boyfriend, I was single for, I don't even think a year really, because we met in grade 11, at the beginning of grade 11, and we broke up in grade 12, and then I think I spent a summer being single, and then I went to university that following September in 2014, and I immediately fell in love with this guy that I met at a party, and I just spent my entire year chasing after him, but he would break up with me every few weeks because he didn't want a girlfriend, and then we would start talking again, and it was like I just chased him for an entire year, and I don't even know if it was because I really knew him. I think I idealized and romanticized a lot of things about him, but I just wanted to be chosen. I think I always felt that I had value only if other people reinforced that. So it's like I would not feel good about myself unless I had won the prize, to prove that I was worth it, to prove that I could do the quote unquote impossible, you know? I got a lot of my value in knowing that I was special enough to turn the head of this guy who absolutely did not want a girlfriend, but he wanted one because it was me. And he kept breaking up with me. I kept fucking like eating shit and crying and feeling heartbroken because he just kept, you know, saying no. And I just wanted to prove that I was worthy enough. And I mean, later on the next year we did end up dating, but holy lord, that was a roller coaster of a relationship. Super toxic, had no self-love for myself. Like, it was just super messy, and I was just an emotional disaster, you know? I didn't know how to soothe myself. I didn't know how to hold myself and how to love myself. And genuinely, after I had dated him, we'll say his name was Donkey. That's a horrible name, but we'll say his name was Donkey. And then I didn't go through a very long period of time. I think it was like just 2 months. And then I met my next boyfriend, who I dated for a year, and then we broke up. And a few months later, I met another guy and we started dating. So as you can see, there is a pattern of just jumping from boyfriend to boyfriend with like barely any time in between. And this is definitely, don't worry, I'm going to go into more of a story about these relationships. But the point is, I'm sharing a pattern. Is like I never spent enough time with myself to love myself and also just be comfortable with being alone. I just so needed that validation from other people to give me a sense of peace, to give me some peace and some worth, to give me peace and worth And obviously these relationships ended like clockwork after a year, because yes, it got to the point where I realized, oh, I didn't actually choose these people for who they were. Some, yes, like I dated some good guys, but I mostly dated these guys because I wanted them to like me and I wanted them to validate me and to keep proving this narrative that I am worthy, I am special enough, I am unique enough. And it's like almost weird because I must have thought that I was special and unique, but I only allowed myself to feel it if other people endorsed it first. And it has to be the other way around. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable for your life. And trust me, that's why I'm freaking here. That's why you're tuning in. That's why I'm doing this, because I want to be real about the journey. And I'm kind of just at this point in my life where I've been in therapy for quite a few years. I've spent a lot of time working on myself, a lot of time psychoanalyzing my past and my history and why I do certain things and why I jumped from boyfriend to boyfriend. And I kind of had this moment of like, enough. I don't want to handle situations the same way that I have. I don't want to be an emotional disaster. I am a very emotional, highly sensitive person, but I want that to be a strength and not be my downfall. You know, I don't know if it's Macbeth or a similar play of great significant importance, but it's like these main characters have strengths, but they let it be their downfall. And so I am at a place where I'm like, how can my emotionality be a gift and not be something that drags me down? And it drags me down when I allow myself to become consumed by these thoughts of fear and insecurity about how I'm not going to be chosen and how I'm not worthy of certain experiences in life and all of this kind of stuff, all of which I'm going to explore way more in depth in other episodes. But this is kind of like a general idea of where my need for external validation comes from and why I am just so tired of letting that take control of my life. And it kind of is weird because I've felt for the past few months that I've been crying so much and that I'm triggered the shit out of so many moments. I have a very secure partner, and there is like a no bullshit tolerance for unhealthy, toxic behaviors. But in that respect, if you are trying to heal this toxicity, you're trying to hone your awareness to situations where you are feeling insecure, you're gonna fucking notice it everywhere. And I feel like I'm noticing it everywhere, every day. And sometimes I get so bogged down being like, holy shit, what the hell is wrong with me? Am I so much worse than I used to be? Because I'm noticing in like so many different situations. We're just walking down the street and I get triggered if I see my partner just looking at a girl in a coffee shop, or we're talking about some friends that we have and he says, you know, I really like that she's so independent. And I immediately am like, oh my god, like I'm not independent enough, and this girl has way more than me, she's so much better than me, I suck, and I can't even really get myself to go for a walk because I feel this anxiety of leaving the house and leaving my partner, like I'm weak and I'm so worthless. It's like, oh my god, those narratives or those thoughts of being mad at yourself for where you are just so not freaking helpful. And I am really here to help you and help myself break them. And I think I just realized how often I give my power away to external situations all the time. And you have to treat it and meet it with a sense of compassion of like, this is where I am in my journey. I am not at this like place where I am super confident and super secure, and that's totally okay. I'm going to embrace the imperfect journey and the fact that I'm getting triggered and treat it with compassion and curiosity, and remember that I can find those roots within myself to feel whole, to feel grounded, to not feel so reactive to external situations. And this is something that I want to explore in another episode, but essentially I had a rock bottom moment. I think it was last night. At this point there was a lot of crying, so I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty sure it was last night, where I just reached a really low moment and my partner pointed out to me how I was just not fully present. And it was super weird because I was trying so hard to be present, but I felt my mind drifting. I felt myself trying to navigate insecurities in my head and also keep it real with myself and talk about why my beliefs and my thoughts were not correct. But he was like, Brenna, I still can just sense that you are letting those thoughts take over you and you're letting it consume you. And I felt just like so broken and hopeless, and I was like, when the fuck is this gonna get better? When am I gonna find this strength? And I was just crying my eyes out. But when I calmed down, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do a meditation and I'm gonna sit with myself. And I sat with myself. I, for the first time, heard my own voice for such a long time being like, Brenna, I'm here for you. I forgive all of the times that you have not shown up for yourself, that you hurt yourself, that you made yourself feel like the problem, and you don't have to continue feeling like that. You can leave that past behind. And also, I know that you're a really good human, that you mean so well, and there are all of these things that you're doing in your life that you don't give yourself credit for. You're starting a YouTube channel, you're starting a podcast, you're trying to learn Spanish, you're a really good partner, you're a really good dog mom, and you really love your family. Like, there are all these things that make you awesome, so you just need to recognize it and believe it. And I just kind of got tired of the bullshit and feeling like I was a shell of myself and I couldn't be myself. And you know what? My partner decides to leave me, but I am living truly into myself, then that is okay, because I just never want to abandon myself. So you and I are going to work on really feeling and finding those roots within yourself. And something that I really realized was like, holy shit, I'm a very good person. I really care about other people and I love other people. And sometimes what gets me out of this negative headspace is when I remember that I want the best for other people, and then that reminds me why I love myself. You might think that's a little backwards, of like you're jumping to loving other people and then you're loving yourself, but I think I really love that part of my personality. I love that I care so much about people. So wishing other people well, wishing love for themselves, wishing love for them, wishing love for all of the people that like quote unquote hurt me or whatever. They were just doing the best that they could. We're all just monkeys. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. We all need to heal something. They have their own situation. So it's like, let it go. Don't make it personal. I was wearing a mask back then. I don't want to wear a mask now. I want to really just like live into my values and make decisions based on that. And we are rewiring and healing our ability to tune into ourselves and make decisions from that place of empowerment. So that is the episode for today. You killed this workout. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for being here. Like and subscribe. It would seriously support this growing community, and stay tuned for more workouts for both our bodies and our minds. Fuck to the yeah.